Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm particularly pleased to welcome a great friend and partner of the World Economic Forum, a role model in the Arab world. King Abdullah ibn Hussein is a leader who has captivated our hearts and minds, not only by his vision, but also by his actions. Actions to promote peace in the region, as well as actions to improve the lives of his peoples through reforms. Majesty, the international community finds in you a true partner for progress and peace, and I can personally attest to that. The extraordinary annual meeting which brought Davos to the Dead Sea in Jordan last June highlighted the important role His Majesty plays in building bridges and peace in the region. Yet much still remains to be done. To continue our quest for security and prosperity in the Middle East, we will hold again a special summit in Jordan in May 2004 with the extraordinary partnership of His Majesty. Majesty, welcome back to Davos. We all look forward to hearing your message.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you, Professor, and thank you all. Let me say what a pleasure and an honor it is to be here and to join you again and to participate in these sessions. We are deeply grateful to you, Professor, for making this kind of global exchange a world-shaping force for the 21st century. And let me say also that Jordanians are extremely proud of their partnership with the World Economic Forum. And the Jordan Valley hosted, as you know, the forum's successful extraordinary annual meeting last June. And we're looking forward to welcoming all of you again this year when the forum meets in the Dead Sea in May. And I invite you to join us to articulate our shared determination to bridge divides, build trust, and forge ahead with the new vision of peace, security, and prosperity. Friends, every meeting of the forum these days seems to come at a time of special challenges. It's been 15 years since the end of the Cold War, and we're still struggling to create a world of security and freedom. Conflicts and crises of poverty, violence, and division have shadowed our new century's promise. Yet in this week's meetings and in many other international arenas, you will hear a tremendous amount of consensus on core solutions. People know what is needed and how to achieve it. In politics, economics, and the environment, in science, technology, and society, there's been a global march forward despite the world's problems. We agree on the urgency of bridging global economic and cultural divides, expanding development, and building democracy. There is equally broad agreement on security issues, on the need to deal with regional conflicts, address the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and unite in the face of terrorism. The time has come, however, to turn the emerging moral consensus on global development and security into practical and genuine achievement. Today's global dialogue must become a partnership for action, for a new political will, and new mechanisms that will make our commitments real. Peace, equity, and justice are not just lofty goals. They are critical to the security of every nation, the success of every private enterprise and NGO, and the opportunities and hopes of every individual. These are the foundations of an open global society. And that world is put at risk every day that we waste by inaction. I am a believer in specifics, so let me suggest a few. First, conflict resolution. Recent history in Iraq, the Balkans, and elsewhere clearly shows the need to strengthen the multilateral political system. International structures should be made robust enough to do the job we ask of them, helping to broker peace and build nations. We should also be closely coordinating international security arrangements within a collective approach. This would allow us to take the lead in setting the priorities in the war on terror. In the economic dimension, we all know that opportunity is a powerful force in giving people a stake in a peaceful future. It is in our hands to create a global growth economy, access to education and technology, and most important, justice, to show young people that ours is a world of fairness, openness, and hope. The Millennium Development Goals need to be reinforced with new benchmarks for assessing progress, for ensuring better and fairer trade, and for forging new global links. This kind of commitment to cooperative, dynamic action is very real to many of us in the Arab world. We know that we must make tangible strides in human development for the sake of our people and for the sake of our future. Today, the average growth in the region is slower than other developing countries. At the same time, with more than half of the Arab population under the age of 18, almost 6 million new job seekers enter the labor market each year. Average unemployment rates are now above 15%. This means that there are not enough jobs and that there is not enough hope. So it takes all sectors to address these issues. A responsive, transparent governance, an educational system dedicated to excellence, and a vigorous private sector that can harness the region's tremendous human potential. Recently, the Arab Business Council of the World Economic Forum has brought together private sector representatives from across the region. In Aqaba last month, the Council drafted a blueprint for action to support economic growth. And I understand that it was adopted here in Davos yesterday. It includes initiatives for educational and judicial reform and an explicit call to governments to commit to openness and freedom. The Arab Business Council is also building bridges with other private sector groups around the world. Next month, members of the Council will be joining me in Malaysia to cement an emerging partnership with the new Asian leaders, a new body of the World Economic Forum, officially launched earlier this morning here in Davos. But we all know that economic remedies on their own cannot yield long-term results if they're not paired with serious political and social liberalization. Initiative, excellence, and innovation cannot take hold in closed societies. Friends, we cannot talk about growth and stability in my region or the globe We cannot take effective action for reform and development without addressing a core conflict that threatens our world, the long and hateful cycle of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. As in other global concerns, the world knows the right thing to do. Last year, both parties and the international community recognized the path set forth by the Arab Summit resolution and the roadmap. This initiative provides clear principles and mechanisms for a just and lasting solution. 2 secure states, Israeli withdrawal from Palestinian territories and dismantling of settlements, 2 capitals in Jerusalem, and an agreed solution to the refugee issue. This is the unavoidable road to peace. Now, with every day of delay, there is harm to the region and the world. For those involved, much is at stake. Families and communities destroyed, and youthful hope that is lost to poverty and despair. For the international community, there's also a lot at stake. The future of global peace and the credibility of the world's commitment to global justice. The international community cannot afford to let the collective suicide of Palestinians and Israelis feed rage and violence in the region and the world. That means rejecting terror, but also condemning repression. And it means moving forward with determination so that we can achieve a just and lasting peace. And it is an effort that requires the active leadership of the United States and a collective international alliance for peace. It would be in tune with the desires of the overwhelming majority of Israelis. It would garner support of the Arab states and Europe for the Palestinian leadership. It would, in fact, measure our collective resolve to translate the global moral consensus into a genuine, practical achievement. Friends, today we face challenges in my region and around the world. But we also face unprecedented promise. Billions of people stand on the brink of new possibilities. And that is what makes any failure so bitter and a sense of urgency so great. It is in our hands today to create not simply promises, but deeds, an era of peace, a global growth economy, expanded access to education and technology, and most important, a world of justice. The future belongs to those who see the world in its full dimensions, an undivided sphere. On such a globe, every point is a center, and every center is a person entitled to prosper and succeed in peace and security. So let us defy separation and isolation. And let us avert the clash of civilizations and help the overlap of cultures. And let us partner for peace, but let us act now. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum.
Excellent. It's the longest applause. Your Majesty, we have very little time for some questions, and I would like to ask you about our forthcoming, to ask for your advice, as last year for our forthcoming meeting at the Dead Sea. What would you see as a major objective of bringing the world community together in your country? What contribution could we really make in terms of action you just outlined?
Well, thank you, Professor. I think that we can all agree that the issues in the Middle East are getting more complex and more difficult. They're definitely not getting easier. And what we need to be able to do is look at a comprehensive approach for the Middle East, including everybody and all sectors of societies throughout the Middle East, to tackle the different types of reforms that we've been talking about. We've been talking about economic reform, social reform, and even more important, political reform. And what I'd like to see, actually, I think that is very important for all of us in the region, with the help of the international community, is where will we be in 5 or 6 years' time from now? What is the vision for the Arab world in 2010? I think all of those that have been here, there are many people who may feel like giving up on the Middle East. And so I think we as Arabs need to think and move forward. I think we need the support and the inclusion of the international community. And the World Economic Forum at the Dead Sea will give an opportunity, I believe, to have a roadmap, a vision for the Middle East in 2010 that includes civil society, NGOs, the private and public sectors. Let us articulate the hope for the future. And at the moment, there is very little hope in the Middle East. So I think we need to sort of rally around and say to our peoples and to the rest of the world that we can do it. We have a vision. And I hope that maybe the World Economic Forum would be a process or a start of articulating the future for all of us in the region.
Your Majesty, last year when you were here, we talked so much about Iraq, and you used just the word hope. Are you hopeful for Iraq?
We have to be hopeful because the alternatives are unacceptable, as we have to be hopeful with the peace process between the Israelis and the Palestinians. We have seen the alternative, what the couple of years have brought to all of us. In specific on Iraq, I hope that tomorrow is better than today. There is an ambitious program, obviously, in 2004 to give Iraqis more of a role in what they have to say. It's the responsibility of all of us in the international community to be with the Iraqis, to help them make that transition. I know that the pictures on television are pretty dismal, but they're people. They have a lot of hope for their future, and they will make it. But will it make it in a year? Will they make it in 10? And I think a lot of that comes back to the international community and what we can do to support them get on their feet as quickly as possible. I am hopeful, and I really do believe that they will get there, but we need the help of everybody for them to be able to achieve that.
Your Majesty, you emphasized again the need for the dialogue of civilizations. And last year, and I'm quoting you, you said 9/11 was a wake-up call for Muslims and sparked a dialogue within our community. It is not about East versus West, it is a conflict within Islam. We are the next target for extremists, end of quote. How do you see 1 year later this conflict within Islam being resolved?
Well, again, I think the dialogue inside Islam in many countries throughout the Middle East and Asia has been brought to the forefront, and there's much more debate and dialogue on the issues that are facing the future of Islam, as is more interaction, I think, between Islamic nations and other nations around the world, that this is not a conflict of cultures. And again, if you look at Iraq and you see Iraqis paying for their lives trying to get their country together, you realize that this is an excuse used by extremists to use religion as an ends to a means. But I think, as we said last year, it is a wake-up call, and one that continues to need engagement and dialogue inside of Islamic societies, not only in the Middle East, but throughout the world. And as I think I pointed out on many occasions, this is not an issue that's going to be solved in a year or two. This is an issue that will need 10, 15 years. Hopefully the element of extremism or terror is a short part of the battle, but the education, the investing in people's minds, this is a long-term issue that will take 10, 15 years, and so we're in for the long haul.
Your Majesty, there are so many expectations towards the young leadership, and we have tried in the Arab Business Council to assemble the young leaders also. But I could nearly say you are a rare species in the Arab world. That's the general impression. Do you see a chance that all Arab countries will be led by leaders like yourself?
I don't think that I'm a rare specimen. All you have to do is look at many of my friends from the Arab world sitting in the first row, and you'll know that there's many of us that think the same way. If the Arab Business Council is any reflection of what the potential of the Middle East is, this is why you know that I'm so hopeful. There are many, many people that share my vision, and I'm proud to look at many people in the front row as my close friends that work together in being able to achieve this. You will see us lead the way, but again, this is a problem that I think, if I may speak on behalf of some of my colleagues here, it is so important for people in the West and further afield to understand that we are at the crossroads. If we fail in our endeavors to make this a success, then there'll be an argument for many of those that do not look forward, that always think in the past not to move forward. If we fail, then there will not be a hope for the Middle East. And so I plead to the international community, to countries that are represented here in the front row, make us succeed, because by our success, we will lead the way for many countries in the Middle East. If we fail, then it'll be a long time until the Middle East can stand up and be part of the international community.
I think, Your Majesty, we end with this plea, and I would like to ask you in the audience to express with your applause how much we support you in your efforts, Your Majesty.